marry me, please?
Careful what you asked for.
She ran into the arms of a stranger to escape her toxic ex and begged him to marry her. What she didn't know? The man she proposed to is Korea's deadliest mafia. Now, what happens when one reckless transaction could cost them everything, love, life, and secrets that refuse to stay buried? Hey lovelies, welcome back to the channel. Trust me, by the end of this story, your heart is going to be racing. Now, I dare you. Try to predict what happens next. Will she survive? Will love win? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the shocking outcome, and don't forget to like the video if your prediction is way off, because, believe me, you'll be surprised. All right, let's dive into it. The bonfire crackled against the California night sky, casting dancing shadows across the Malibu beachfront. Naledi adjusted the cobalt blue dress she'd bought specifically for tonight, the color Jace once mentioned he loved, and checked her phone again. 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until midnight, 13 minutes until her 23rd birthday officially ended, and with it, the surprise he'd promised. Around her, Jace's friends laughed and drank, their voices carrying over the crash of distant waves. She watched him across the fire, beer in hand, grinning at someone's joke. He hadn't looked at her once in the past hour. The sound of heels on sand made her turn. Melissa, Jace's ex, emerged from the darkness wearing a dress that left little to imagination, her expression carefully crafted into vulnerability. Naledi's stomach dropped. "I hope it's okay I came," Melissa said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I just felt so alone tonight." Jace's head snapped up, and Naledi watched his face transform with concern she hadn't seen directed at her in months. The clock on her phone ticked to midnight. "Happy birthday to me," she thought bitterly. "Jace," Naledi stood, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Can we talk for a minute?" He waved her off without looking away from Melissa. "Not now, babe." Melissa suddenly cried out, stumbling forward and clutching her ankle. "Oh God, I think I twisted it." Jace was beside her in seconds, all tenderness and concern, his hand steadying her with a gentleness Naledi had been craving all night. All month, if she was honest. "It's my birthday," Naledi said, hating how small her voice sounded. "Can you please just stay?" Jace turned, and the annoyance in his eyes cut deeper than any blade. "You'll have another birthday, Naledi. Stop being so dramatic and needy." The laughter died. Everyone stared. Pity filled their eyes, and somehow that was worse than the humiliation. Naledi stood frozen as Jace helped Melissa toward his car, watched them drive away, tail lights disappearing into the night. The fire popped and hissed, mocking her with its warmth. She sank back onto the log, tears streaming down her face. Always the backup plan, always the replacement, always the one left behind. "You okay?" Marcus approached, one of Jace's friends she'd never particularly liked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He sat too close, alcohol heavy on his breath. "Look, I feel bad. You should know, they've been seeing each other behind your back for weeks." The words hit like a physical blow. Everything made sense now. The late-night texts, the distance, the way he'd stopped touching her. "You deserve better," Marcus continued, his hand landing on her thigh. "Someone who sees you." Naledi froze. His fingers tightened, sliding higher. "Come on, he doesn't want you, but I do." His grip turned painful. She shoved him hard, stumbling to her feet. "Get off me!" Marcus lunged. Naledi ran, crashing into the darkness beyond the fire's reach. Branches tore at her dress, at her skin. Something sharp, thorns, sliced open her palm. Blood ran warm down her hand as she crashed through the undergrowth, his footsteps heavy behind her. "Where are you going to go?" Marcus called, mocking. "Nobody wants you." Terror drove her deeper into the woods. She couldn't see, couldn't think, could only run until she slammed directly into something solid. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. Naledi looked up into the most striking face she'd ever seen. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, eyes like black ice that seemed to see everything. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, completely out of place in the woods. Behind him, 3 men in black stood with hands inside their jackets watching. Marcus crashed into the clearing and stopped dead. He tried to, He attacked me, Naledi gasped out. The stranger's expression didn't change, but the temperature seemed to drop. He moved with practiced ease, pulling a gun from beneath his jacket and aiming it at Marcus with terrifying calm. "Touch her again," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent, each word measured and cold as winter. "And you won't leave these woods. Not alive." Marcus ran, crashing through the forest like prey fleeing a predator. One of the bodyguards approached. "Sir, the package is buried. Business concluded." Package. Buried. Business. Naledi's gaze darted to a patch of disturbed earth nearby, and her mind connected dots she wished it hadn't. "Oh my God, you killed someone. I'm a witness." The stranger reached for her. "Wait, you don't understand." But the adrenaline, the betrayal, the fear, it was too much. The world tilted sideways. As darkness rushed in, she felt strong arms catch her, heard a low voice say, "I've got you." Something warm settled around her shoulders. His jacket, she realized, before consciousness slipped away entirely. For the first time that night, someone had caught her when she fell. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows when Naledi opened her eyes. Silk sheets, marble floors, art that belonged in museums. She bolted upright, her injured hand throbbing. Someone had cleaned and bandaged it with professional precision. The door opened, and the stranger from the woods entered carrying a breakfast tray. In daylight, he was even more striking, his beauty almost severe. Korean features, she realized, and probably close to 30. "You fainted," he said, setting the tray on the nightstand. "I brought you here to recover. You're safe." "Safe?" Naledi backed against the headboard. "You buried a body. I'm a witness. You're going to kill me." He sat in the chair beside the bed with careful patience. "You misunderstood what you saw." "Then what was it?" Something flickered in those dark eyes. "I'll explain, but first, let me rebandage your hand properly. You're bleeding through." She shouldn't let him near her, but his touch was gentle, careful, as he unwrapped the bandage and examined the cuts. It confused her, this tenderness from someone she'd assumed was a killer. "Why are you being nice to me?" she whispered. "What do you want?" He met her eyes. "I'm not going to hurt you, I promise." She laughed, bitter and broken. "Everyone says that. Then they leave, or they lie, or they—" Her voice cracked. Then it hit her. A wild, desperate idea, born from fear and self-preservation. "Marry me." He blinked, hands stilling on her bandaged palm. "What?" "I can't testify against my husband. Spousal privilege. If we're married, I'm protected. You're protected. It makes sense." The words tumbled out, gaining momentum from panic. He studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile that transformed his face entirely. "If you want to be my wife, I won't say no." Naledi stared. She'd expected him to laugh, to refuse, to call her insane. He stood and left the room. She'd scared him off, she thought. But he returned minutes later carrying a birthday cake, candles already lit. "It was your birthday last night," he said softly. "No one should spend their birthday alone and forgotten." Something cracked open in her chest. He remembered. This stranger who owed her nothing had noticed and cared when the person who supposedly loved her hadn't. He made a single phone call. 2 hours later, an officiant stood in his mansion's marble foyer, looking uncertain. Naledi wore an ivory dress that fit perfectly. How had he known her size? And held a bouquet someone had rushed to procure. "This is quite sudden," the officiant said carefully. Naledi lifted her chin. "I proposed. He said yes." They exchanged simple rings, his temporarily. She repeated vows with trembling hands, barely processing the words until the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride." The stranger, her husband now, she realized with surreal clarity, cupped her face with both hands. When his lips met hers, something ignited. The kiss deepened, heat and electricity crackling between them. She found herself pressing closer, fingers curling into his shirt, lost in sensation she hadn't expected and didn't understand. They broke apart, both breathing hard, both clearly shaken. "You're under my protection now," he promised, voice rough. No one will hurt you again. I need to keep my job, she said quickly. My independence. I can't be locked away. I'm not trying to cage you. His thumb brushed her cheek. I just want you safe. In the car afterward, Naledi touched her lips, unable to forget the feeling of his mouth on hers, the way he'd held her like she was something precious. This was supposed to be fake, a transaction born from mutual need. So why did it feel so terrifyingly real? Naledi's phone buzzed for the 7th time that morning. She stared at Jace's name flashing across the screen, her finger hovering over the decline button. Finally, she answered. Where the hell have you been? His voice carried that familiar edge of annoyance, disguised as concern. You left without saying goodbye. She laughed, and the sound surprised her, bitter but free. We're done. I'm done. Baby, don't be like that. You know you need me. I don't. Goodbye, Jace. She hung up and blocked his number in the same motion, her hands steadier than they'd been in months. Her husband, she still couldn't quite believe she could call him that, looked up from his coffee. They hadn't exchanged names yet, she realized. This beautiful stranger who'd married her on a whim. But somehow, it didn't seem to matter. That afternoon, she found herself in a jewelry store in Beverly Hills, studying wedding bands. The jeweler showed her matching sets, simple, elegant, meaningful. She bought them without hesitation, her new credit card, his credit card, sliding across the counter. At the mall afterward, she ran directly into 2 of Jace's friends near the fountain. Naledi! They spotted the jewelry store bag, eyes widening. Oh my God, are you going to propose to him? That's so desperate, she smiled, mysterious and unbothered. Something like that. She could see the rumor forming in their eyes, already spreading through their phones before she'd even turned away. By evening, Jace would hear she'd bought rings, would assume she was crawling back. Let him think it. The mansion felt different when she returned, less like a gilded cage and more like possibility. She found him in his study, working through papers with that intense focus she was beginning to recognize. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression softened. I bought something, she said, pulling out the velvet boxes. He stood slowly, eyes fixed on the rings. You bought these for me. We should have real ones, even if this started as protection. She held out his ring, hands only slightly trembling. He took it, studying the platinum band before sliding it onto his finger. Then he reached for her hand, taking the other ring with a reverence that stole her breath. His fingers were gentle as he slid it onto her hand, the fit perfect. Something unspoken passed between them, crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. She was choosing him, actively, and it terrified her how much she wanted this to be real. 3 days later, her hand throbbed with infection despite the careful bandaging. He'd insisted on the hospital, his concern overriding her protests. They sat in the waiting room of Cedars Sinai, his hand warm against the small of her back, when Jace walked in, supporting Melissa. Naledi's entire body tensed. Her husband noticed immediately, his gaze sharpening as he followed her line of sight. Jace spotted her, and that familiar swagger returned. There she is, ready to apologize. She stood, chin lifted. I have nothing to apologize for. He grabbed her wrist, the injured one. Pain shot through her hand, and she couldn't hide the wince. Before she could pull away, her husband was there, moving with terrifying speed. He yanked Jace's hand away and delivered a punch that sent him sprawling across the waiting room floor. Who the hell are you? Jace shouted, blood streaming from his nose. Her husband pulled Naledi close, possessive and protective, one arm wrapping around her waist. I'm her husband. Gasps rippled through the waiting room. Phones appeared, recording. Melissa's mouth fell open. Jace laughed, nasty and disbelieving. Husband? You married her? You desperate... Her husband moved again, grabbing Jace's hand and applying pressure. The crack was audible. Jace screamed. She said no, her husband said, voice deadly calm. Learn what that word means. Security arrived, but her husband's demeanor shifted. Calm, authoritative, speaking in low tones that had them nodding and escorting Jace out instead of him. As they left the hospital, his arm stayed around her shoulders. He fought for me, Naledi realized, something warm and terrifying blooming in her chest. He claimed me. He chose me. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the second choice. That evening, he informed her they had a charity gala to attend. The dress arrived an hour later, emerald green silk that hugged every curve, elegant and stunning. She studied herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The gala was his world entirely. High society, dangerous people in expensive suits, money and power flowing like champagne. Men's eyes followed her across the ballroom. She felt her husband's hand tighten on her waist, his jaw setting. A business associate approached, all charm and expensive cologne. And who is this vision? My wife. Her husband's voice carried an edge she hadn't heard before. The man didn't take the hint. Would you honor me with a dance? Naledi looked at her husband. He nodded stiffly, letting her because this gala was a mutual ground for rival bosses, and he didn't want to break their truce, but his eyes had gone dark, storm-tossed. On the dance floor, the associate leaned too close, his breath warm against her ear. If you ever get bored of the serious type, she stepped back firmly. I won't. When she returned, her husband's jealousy was palpable. He'd gone cold, withdrawn, barely speaking as they made their rounds. In the car afterwards, silence stretched between them like a chasm. What's wrong? She finally asked. Nothing. But his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. You're angry. I don't like other men touching you. The admission seemed torn from him, raw and honest. Her heart raced. I'm your wife. I danced with him because you said I could. I know. He exhaled harshly. I know. I have no right to... He stopped, jaw clenching. She touched his arm, feeling the tension coiled beneath his skin. You do. You have every right. He pulled the car over abruptly, turning to face her. The look in his eyes made her breath catch. Possessive, hungry, barely controlled. The fake marriage was crumbling, and real feelings were flooding in to take its place. By the end of the week, she'd returned to work at the marketing firm in Santa Monica. Co-workers whispered about her sudden marriage, stolen glances and hushed conversations following her through the office. Her manager, David, an older man who'd always been kind, pulled her aside. Are you happy? He asked carefully. Safe? She nodded, surprised to realize it was true. I am. That evening, she found her husband in his study, whiskey in hand, staring at nothing. She'd never seen him like this, vulnerable, unguarded. She sat beside him on the leather couch. Talk to me, she said softly. I can't. His voice was strained, foreign. Why not? Because if I start, I won't stop. And you'll run. She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. Try me. He looked at her, and something cracked in his carefully constructed walls. That night in the woods, you asked what I buried. Her breath caught. It wasn't a body. It was my dog, Kaiser. His voice broke on the name. He'd been with me for 12 years. Cancer took him. I was burying him in his favorite spot where we used to walk. Tears pricked her eyes. I'm so sorry. I know what you thought. And I let you think it because I wanted you to stay. He stood, pacing like a caged animal. Because that wasn't the first time I saw you. What? He turned, intensity burning in his gaze. 3 months ago. Coffee shop in Venice Beach. You were reading, laughing at something in your book. You looked up, and our eyes met for half a second. You smiled at me, really smiled. Then your phone rang, and I watched your smile die. Him. It was him, wasn't it? She remembered. That moment of connection with a beautiful stranger gone as quickly as it came. I remember. I couldn't stop thinking about you. I tried to find you again, went back to that coffee shop every day for 2 weeks. And then you ran into me in those woods, terrified and hurt. And I thought... His voice cracked completely. I thought maybe I could protect you, keep you, even if you thought I was a monster. She crossed to him, her hand trembling as it touched his face. You should have told me. Would you have stayed if I had? His voice was raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Her thumb traced his cheekbone. But I'm staying now. Why? The word came out desperate, almost broken. Because you're the first person who ever caught me when I fell. And I think... Her breath hitched. I think I'm falling again. He kissed her then, fierce, consuming, full of months of longing and restraint finally shattered. She kissed back with equal hunger, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. They stumbled toward the couch, then toward the stairs, lips never parting, hands exploring, both of them desperate and wanting and finally letting go. Dawn broke soft and golden across the bedroom. Naledi woke, wrapped in silk sheets and his arms, his breath warm against her neck. For a moment, everything was perfect. Then reality crashed in like a wave. What have I done? He's seen me now, really seen me. What if he realizes I'm not worth keeping? The old fears rose like ghosts. Everyone leaves. Everyone chooses someone else. She was always the backup, the replacement, the one left behind. Last night changed everything, which meant it could all be taken away. She carefully extracted herself from his embrace, moving slowly so she wouldn't wake him. She dressed in yesterday's clothes, grabbed her phone and slipped out of the mansion as the sun painted California gold. The cab ride to her old apartment in Venice Beach felt like an escape and a surrender all at once. He woke to cold sheets and empty space beside him. Panic seized his chest immediately, primal and overwhelming. He reached for his phone, dialing her number straight to voicemail. Find her. Now. He was already moving, pulling on clothes, his mind racing through possibilities. His security team assembled in minutes. His second-in-command, Jin Woo, spoke carefully. Sir, she left. Maybe she wants space. She's scared. She thinks I'll leave. He grabbed his keys, his control fracturing. She thinks I'll abandon her now that... He stopped, jaw clenching. Find her. They tracked her phone to an apartment in Venice Beach. He drove himself, breaking every speed limit, his hands tight on the wheel. When he reached her building, he took the stairs 2 at a time. He pounded on the door. I know you're in there. Open the door. Silence answered him. Please, his voice cracked. Let me in, or I'm breaking it down. The door opened slowly. She stood there looking fragile, defensive, her eyes red from crying. What do you want? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with careful control. Why did you leave? Because that's what happens. Her laugh was bitter, broken. People see who I really am and they leave. So I left first. You think I'd leave you after last night? Especially after last night. She wrapped her arms around herself. Now you know I'm nothing special. Replaceable. Just like I've always been. He grabbed her shoulders, not rough but firm, forcing her to look at him. Look at me. Look at me. She met his eyes, tears streaming down her face. You are not replaceable. You are not forgettable. His voice shook with intensity. You are everything I didn't know I needed until you crashed into my life covered in blood and terror, and I am not letting you go. Do you understand me? I am not him. I am not anyone who's ever hurt you. I choose you. I will always choose you. She broke then, collapsing against his chest, sobbing. He held her, his own tears falling silent into her hair, both of them clinging to each other like drowning people finding shore. Come home, he whispered. Please come home. By afternoon, she'd agreed to return to the mansion. The relief on his face made her chest ache. They drove back in silence, his hand never leaving hers. That evening, she wandered toward his study and heard voices, his head of security speaking in urgent, clipped tones. She stopped in the hallway, listening. We have a problem. Dmitry Volkov knows about her. Her husband's voice went deadly cold. How? The hospital incident, the gala. Too many witnesses saw you together. He sees her as leverage against you. She pushed open the door. Both men turned. Who's Dmitry Volkov? Her husband's expression shifted. Protective, worried. A rival, dangerous. He's been trying to take my territory for years. And now he knows about me. It wasn't a question. You're safe here. I have security everywhere. But I can't live in a cage. She stepped closer. I won't. I know. Frustration bled into his voice, but until he's handled, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, putting it on speaker. A cold voice filled the room, thick with a Russian accent. I hear congratulations are in order. A wife. How vulnerable that makes you, Minjun? Minjun. His name. She finally knew his name. The line went dead. Minjun's hand tightened around the phone, his knuckles white. The danger was no longer abstract. It was coming for her. 2 days later, despite Minjun's protests, Naledi insisted on going to work. I won't live in fear. That's not living at all. He assigned 2 bodyguards, discreet but omnipresent. She felt smothered but understood. After work, she stopped at a pharmacy in Santa Monica for aspirin. The bodyguards waited outside, visible through the glass doors. Inside, someone bumped into her near the vitamin aisle. Sorry, a man muttered. She felt a sharp prick in her arm like an insect bite. The world immediately began to swim, colours bleeding together. She tried to call out, tried to reach for her phone, but her limbs wouldn't cooperate. The last thing she saw was the bodyguards still outside, oblivious, before darkness swallowed her whole. She woke to throbbing pain in her head and the acrid smell of mildew. Her hands were zip-tied in front of her, the plastic biting into her wrists. The room was dark, concrete walls, a single bare bulb swinging overhead. Footsteps approached. A man emerged from the shadows, older, maybe 60, with a scarred face and eyes like winter ice. Dmitry Volkov. Hello, Mrs. Rousseau. His smile was cruel. Your husband and I are going to have a conversation about territory. And you, my dear, are the subject. Naledi's fear crystallized into fury. She spat at him, the saliva landing on his expensive shoe. He'll kill you, Dmitry laughed, the sound echoing off concrete. That's what I'm counting on. Minjun will make mistakes when he's emotional. And you, darling, make him very emotional. I've never seen the Ice Prince lose his composure before you. It's quite fascinating. He circled her like a predator studying prey. When he comes for you, and he will come, he'll be reckless, vulnerable. And that's when I'll take everything from him. His territory, his empire, his life, and you'll watch it happen. She met his eyes, refusing to show fear, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of. Oh, but I do. I've known Minjun for years. I know exactly what he's capable of. Volkov leaned closer, his breath hot against her face. The question is, do you? Do you know what kind of monster you married? She smiled then, sharp and defiant. I know exactly who I married, and you should be terrified. Volkov's expression darkened. He backhanded her across the face, the impact snapping her head to the side. Blood filled her mouth, coppery and warm. We'll see how brave you are when your husband's blood is pooling at your feet. He left, the door slamming shut, plunging her back into darkness. Naledi worked at the zip ties, her wrists burning, and realized with crystal clarity how much she wanted to survive. Not just for herself anymore, for him, for them, for the future they'd barely begun to build. Minjun would come. She knew it with absolute certainty. And when he did, Volkov would learn exactly what happened to people who threatened what belonged to the Ice Prince. The photo came through on an encrypted line. Minjun's phone buzzed, and when he opened it, the world stopped. Naledi, bound and bruised, blood at the corner of her mouth, terror in her eyes. He lost all composure. The phone shattered against the wall. His desk followed, flipped with a roar of rage that brought his entire security team running. They'd never seen him like this, the Ice Prince melting into something feral, unhinged, dangerous. I want every man we have. His voice was lethal calm wrapped around fury. I want every resource. I want Volkov's location in the next hour, or I start burning his businesses to the ground. Every single one. Jinwoo worked frantically coordinating their network. 43 minutes later they had it, an abandoned warehouse on the Long Beach docks. Minjun geared up personally, Glock, spare magazines, Kevlar vest, cold fury radiating from every movement. Jinwoo stepped forward carefully. Sir, it's a trap. He wants you angry, wants you reckless. Minjun checked his gun with practiced ease, his eyes dead and dark. Then he'll get exactly what he wants. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a skeleton. Min-jun moved with military precision, his team fanning out in coordinated silence. The first guard went down with a suppressed shot, then the second. The gunfight erupted in chaos. Muzzle flashes, shouting, the smell of cordite and blood. Min-jun moved through it like death incarnate, focused only on finding her. Nothing else mattered. Not strategy, not survival, not his empire. Only her. He found her in a back room, still zip-tied, blood dried on her split lip. When she looked up and saw him, she sobbed with relief that shattered what remained of his control. You came. Always. He was already moving, cutting her bonds with his knife, pulling her into his arms. I'll always come for you. Footsteps behind them. Volkov appeared in the doorway, gun aimed at Min-jun's head. How touching. The ice prints on his knees for a woman. Min-jun moved faster, shooting Volkov's hand before the older man could pull the trigger. The gun clattered to the concrete. Then Min-jun was on him, rage unleashed in brutal, methodical violence. Years of restraint, of control, shattered. Every punch was for touching her, for hurting her, for daring to take what was his. Naledi's hand touched his arm, gentle despite the zip-tie burns on her wrists. Stop, please, I need you, not this. He stopped immediately, breathing hard, Volkov's blood on his knuckles. He turned to her, his hands shaking as they cupped her face. Let's go home. Jinwoo and the team secured Volkov. Alive, barely. Min-jun carried Naledi out of that warehouse like she was made of glass, holding her against his chest the entire drive back to Malibu. The private doctor arrived within the hour, treating her injuries in the master bedroom. Minor cuts, bruises that would fade, no concussion. Min-jun sat beside the bed, holding her hand like she might disappear if he let go. I'm sorry. His voice broke on the words. This happened because of me. No. She squeezed his hand weakly. It happened because someone else made a choice. You saved me. I should have protected you better. Should have. You did. She pulled him closer until their foreheads touched. You came for me. You chose me over strategy, over safety, over everything. You chose me. He kissed her forehead, her bruised cheekbone, her split lip, gentle, reverent, worshipful. I love you. I've loved you since that coffee shop, since the woods, since you fainted in my arms and I realized I'd do anything to keep you safe. Tears streamed down her face. I love you too. I think I started falling that first night when you gave me a birthday cake, when you saw me when no one else ever had. I'll always see you. He brushed her tears away with his thumbs. You're impossible to miss. She pulled him into the bed beside her, and they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her like he could shield her from the entire world. Neither of them slept, just held each other as dawn broke soft and golden over the Pacific. Weeks passed. Volkov's organization crumbled without its head, his territory absorbed or scattered. Life settled into something that felt almost normal. Morning coffee on the terrace, her return to work with reasonable security, learning each other in 1,000 small ways. His favorite food was kimchi jjigae that reminded him of his grandmother. Hers was bobotie her mother used to make. He'd been raised in Seoul before moving to California for business. She'd left Cape Town for university and never looked back. They built a life together, real and solid, no longer held together by fear or convenience, but by choice. One evening in early autumn, Min-jun told her to dress for dinner. She wore the emerald green dress from the gala, and when she came downstairs, his expression made her feel like the most beautiful woman alive. He drove them away from the city, up into the hills, until they reached the woods where they'd first met. Why are we here? She asked. He led her down a familiar path, but this time it opened into a clearing transformed by magic. Lanterns hung from every tree, casting golden light. Flowers covered the ground, roses and jasmine and orchids. In the center, beneath an arch of wisteria, he stopped. Then he got down on one knee. The first time you proposed out of fear. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. You thought you needed protection, a shield against what you'd seen. She nodded, her throat too tight for words. This time I'm asking, not because we have to, Not for spousal privilege or safety or strategy. He opened a velvet box, revealing a ring that stole her breath, emerald-cut diamond set in platinum, surrounded by smaller stones that caught the lantern light. But because I want forever with you, because you are my home, my purpose, my choice, will you marry me again? For real this time? She dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands, kissing him through tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger where the simple band already sat, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, like everything between them had been meant to happen exactly this way. 3 months later, she stood in a private suite overlooking the Pacific, wearing white lace that made her feel like a dream. Her mother had flown in from South Africa, tears in her eyes. Min Jun's family had come from Seoul, his parents, his younger sister who'd hugged Naledi and whispered, "Thank you for making him smile again." She walked down an aisle lined with white roses and fairy lights, and when Min Jun saw her, tears shone openly in his eyes. No ice prince now, just a man watching his entire world walk toward him. The vows were personal, raw, honest. She spoke first, her voice clear despite the tears. "You taught me what it means to be chosen, to be seen, to be someone's first choice, their only choice. You caught me when I fell, and you've been catching me ever since." His voice was rough with emotion. "You taught me what it means to be seen too, to let someone past every wall I built. You made me want to be better, to be worthy of the gift you gave me when you crashed into my life and proposed to a stranger in the woods." They kissed, and it was perfect. Promise and passion and peace. The reception flowed with champagne and laughter, their two worlds blending seamlessly. During their first dance, Naledi pressed close and whispered against his ear, "I have something to tell you." He pulled back, concerned immediately. "What's wrong?" She took his hand and placed it on her stomach, flat beneath the lace. "Nothing's wrong." "Everything's right." His eyes widened, searching her face. "Are you pregnant? About 8 weeks." He lifted her, spinning her in a circle, laughing with pure, unfiltered joy. Around them, guests cheered, but neither of them noticed. They were too lost in each other, in this moment, in the future they'd built from fear and desperation and unexpected love. 1 year later, Naledi rocked their daughter in the nursery of the Malibu mansion, moonlight streaming through the windows. Minjung, named for her father, with her mother's warm brown eyes, slept peacefully against her chest. Minjun entered, exhausted from a long day, but his face softened immediately when he saw them. "How are my girls?" "Perfect. She's got your stubbornness, though." Naledi smiled as he sat beside them, wrapping his arm around them both. "Do you remember that night?" he asked quietly, "when you ran into me in the woods? Every second of it. I thought I was catching a stranger. Turns out I was catching my entire future." She leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent, cedar and citrus and home. "Best accident of my life." "Not an accident." He kissed her temple, then their daughter's head. "Fate." Minjung made a small sound, her tiny fist curling against Naledi's chest. They both smiled, that secret smile parents share over their sleeping child. "She's going to be so loved," Naledi whispered. "She already is, just like her mother." Outside, the Pacific crashed against the shore. Inside, a family existed that shouldn't have, built from blood and fear and a desperate proposal in the darkness. But love had conquered it all. Fear, trauma, danger, doubt. Every obstacle had only made them stronger. Naledi had been left behind, forgotten, replaceable. Now she was chosen, cherished, irreplaceable. And she'd chosen him right back, again and again, in every moment that mattered. This was their happy ending, hard-won, real, and forever. And that's how a birthday betrayal in the darkness led to a love that conquered everything. Naledi went from being forgotten and replaceable to becoming someone's entire world. Sometimes the worst night of your life is just the beginning of your greatest love story. What did you think? Did Min Jun's obsession from the coffee shop give you butterflies? Or was it the moment he showed up with that birthday cake? Drop Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite scene. I love reading your thoughts. If this story had you feeling all the emotions, smash that like button. It really helps this story reach more people who need a reminder that they're worth choosing too. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I'm dropping more intense romance stories just like this one. You won't want to miss it. And hey, if you know someone who loves enemies to lovers, mafia romance, or marriage of convenience tropes, share this video with them. Let's spread the love and the drama. Until next time, remember, you are not replaceable. You are not forgettable. You deserve someone who chooses you every single time. See you in the next story.